Hi, I'm Peggy with Headshots by Peggy, and today we have Alana Jackler with us, and she is a video producer and a content strategist. So we are going to have a lot of fun talking today.
Thank you for having me, Peggy.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time out of your very busy day.
Well, this has been a long time waiting. You and I
have. It's been 2 months. I've been saying, "Hey, would you call me? Can you call me? Hey, Alana." So I feel really special.
Yeah. No, I've really wanted to do this. I've really wanted to connect, from watching you behind the scenes with Mink Life Motivation and hearing you speak. I just feel like you're such a dynamic person. And yeah, I wanted to connect more. So glad we get to do it.
Well, perfect. I brought you in to give me a plug. So thank you. All right, we can go now. No.
Done. I feel good.
So the reason I wanted to bring you on is because you wear a lot of hats. You do a lot of things, and you were into acting. I don't think you're currently pursuing a career in acting, but you understand the industry and you understand media. And media is very important to actors. And I know a lot of us don't want to admit how important media is. I know me, myself, I cringe, but I'm doing better. I mean, it's something that I've had to make myself do until it became like, okay, this isn't so bad. But media is really important. We live in a media driven world. So social media, especially after the lockdown and, all the COVID stuff, we're not out meeting people and networking. So, you have a video production company, but you also do media and content strategy. So talk to me about that. Let's kind of dive into that and go from there.
Yeah. So as you said, I used to be a performer. And when I was performing, I actually cringed at doing this. Like, I was not a fan of talking as me. I love getting into characters, putting on costumes, being anyone but me. So you asked me to go on social media as Alana Jackler. I was not a huge fan. But that was already I'd say I started shifting out of that mode 8 years ago. I got to a point where I had enough of getting really bad scripts, and I wanted to take more control of my career. And I just started writing. I was on this crazy horror film, and it was just, pardon my French, a shit show. It was a shit show. And it inspired all this writing. And a friend of mine was involved with, I don't know if the organization's still around. It kind of is. It's called the IAWTV. And it was really very instrumental in giving independent creators who are looking to create digitally a community. There was a friend of mine invited me to join this writing workshop. It was a once a month thing, and I wrote it during my time there. And I got to know people in this space, because if you asked me if I wanted to create digitally a web series, I was just like, oh, I didn't know what it meant. Very few people were doing it at the time, but I saw the potential in it, because ultimately the value is the opportunity. The value is the potential audience. The value is the exposure that you're getting in doing this, and the opportunity to just be creative, and do it your own way. And yeah, so, and through that experience, I met my current boyfriend, who liked the script, came on as a creative consultant, and that started our journey together, creating. And we were living in New York at the time, and we decided to build a whole production studio in our home. And I'm saying, our apartment had a green screen studio, had one of the extra bedrooms turned into 2 sets. We turned another bedroom into an office space. We had like 20 interns, and we launched what was called Sci-Fi Riot. It was a sci-fi channel on YouTube, and we had 10 different shows, a lot of which we created in-house, and some of which we licensed. And it was just really my first entrance into this space, creating for YouTube, creating for an audience and engaging. And so editing, like I barely edited before, and I learned through the experience, wow, I'm a really good editor. It's a pain in the ass half the time, but like I really enjoy the process of carving a story from seemingly nothing, or from this large base of footage, whittling it down to this 1 minute piece that is zippy and zany. And so I learned I was much more than just an actor at that time. Like I knew I had writing skills, but I didn't really see myself as behind the camera. And the behind the camera stuff started to take precedent over my performing. And so one of the shows we created, I was the lead. I played a mad scientist taking over the world. I'll show you the video one day. But it was kind of a pain in the ass in the sense that, like, because I was writing, producing, I was doing everything. By the time I got to set, I was like, what's my line? It was hard to keep everything, and that was a learning lesson for me and for anyone in your audience who's looking to create their own material. Like creating a space for you to be an actor outside of the producer writer is so important. So you need to find a way to either create boundaries for yourself, or just really take time, because as much as I had fun, it was a fun character, and luckily I wasn't doing like Shakespeare or whatever, but but it was still hard. And so I moved out to LA 6 years ago, and I thought I was going to go back to acting, as a full-time. I had a manager, or I was going on auditions, and it just wasn't really resonating with me. It felt like I was taking a step back. It felt like I was back into the mode of like, hire me. Not that I was like that. But I feel like there's a imbalance of power with actors. You're waiting for someone to give you a job, and you don't have to approach it from a needy way, but I was back to auditioning and waiting. And it just wasn't really resonating and for me, and I wasn't passionate. And I'm like, well, I really feel like in this industry you have to be passionate, because there's a lot of no's, there's a lot of waiting, there's a lot of ups and downs. So, if you're not 100% in it, like there are plenty of other paths to take. And I never felt that way before.
No, there's so much that goes on to produce a project, like so many different things. And that's why I always tell my actors, I'm like, get involved, even if it's just helping, volunteering, because the more you understand the industry as a whole, the more you understand everyone else's job, it's either going to, one, drive you to be a better actor and you're going to understand the process more, or B, it's going to be like, oh, I do want to work in this industry, but that's awesome. And, it's going to give you, it's going to go one or two ways for you. Either way, it's going to be a benefit, because you're going to get into a space of either growth and understanding, so you can be a better actor and, more productive and more valuable on set. Or you're going to say, you know what, I think I could use my time a lot better if I was, doing something else. But there's just so many amazing jobs. Like sometimes I sit back and I'm like, oh, that's a job, huh? Somebody does that, like, you know what I mean? Like that's a whole job. Like somebody does that. And without that person, this movie or this series or whatever it is, this project wouldn't be successful. And the more you understand all the different aspects of it, you just grow as a person and you bring that
Absolutely.
with you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know so many people that either I started as an actor, or as a lot of people that I know, like, hey, I was a DP and all of a sudden they like told me to jump in and I was like, hey, I can actually act, and then go and take classes. And, so, you like, hey, I want to be involved in this industry, find your spot. And, you may be in the right spot, but the more you know about everybody else's spot, the better you're going to be at your thing.
Yeah,
That's
it's funny.
my 2
Like,
cents.
I came looking to move out to LA like 15 years ago. And I was like, no, I couldn't do it. I'm such a New Yorker. I barely drive. I had a panic attack from the driving. I was like, I could never live out here. And then, cut to like 10 years later, LA, the landscape of LA completely changed. Like, it's way more accessible. You still need a car, but it's way more accessible. I live in West Hollywood, so it's like I can feel like a New Yorker and walk around. But yeah, this isn't how I expected to, my experience of LA. I expected like to be part of the industry. In many ways, I'm on the periphery, and that's fine. I decided, so when I switched out of wanting to be an actor, it was hard. It felt like it was a death of, a death of myself. I felt like I was so attached to that identity for so long that I didn't know. And then I just started looking around me, and we have, as much as we got rid of a lot of our production equipment, we still have our cameras and basic stuff. And I just started taking my camera out with me and filming. And I hate to say it, but there are so many issues in LA, and I got in particular homelessness. And so I just, I started documenting my community. And with that, I did a story on a homeless man and started creating relationships. So I was working more as a a short form documentarian, and working with digital media companies and licensing the videos. So I started noticing the trend of what was happening on Facebook, where it was kind of like a news / documentary with companies like Now This, AJ Plus. And I was like, I could do that. Oh yeah. That's hard. It's very hard what they're doing. I spent, because a lot of what they're doing is topical. So you're essentially, you get like the news of the day, whether it's, Biden, was the inauguration, and then you go and do the video, and you have like literally a deadline of 4 to 6 hours to get it to them. It's stressful, and I've gotten better in terms of, completing those, but I prefer to do more like human centric, non-topical, more like evergreen stuff. But yeah, I mean, that was my entryway. It was just like figuring out, what am I passionate about, and what can I do without relying on someone to hire me? Because at that point I was like, I don't know what I'm hireable as. Like, I was an actor for a good many years. I was like, what is someone going to hire me to do? And that's essentially how I spent, the past 8 years, is just figuring out like, what is it? How can I empower myself? How can I take control? And yeah, to this day, it's been a lot of different shifts and turns. I did a year in politics, which I never thought I would do. I launched a grassroots media company to have an impact on the 2018 midterms, and has slid into working with nonprofits, political organizations, and more recently entrepreneurs, because I love working with entrepreneurs. Yeah, so I've been in a very different space, a non-narrative, real person, real stories. But I honestly, it's been so crazy the past couple of years that you like don't need to make anything up. It's like, and people's stories are so interesting. Like, I loved listening to your story of like your journey, that, we took the time to work on a bit. I just think getting to know someone and their challenges, because we're not perfect. Our journey isn't like, I wanted to be a photographer and bam, it happened. Yeah, there's a lot of like ups and downs and crashes, and, and then, how you ended up as a headshot photographer. seeing the opportunity, taking a risk and jumping into that space
I
is
would call it
very
being
inspiring.
pushed. I wouldn't call it jump, but sure, yeah, we can go with that. But sometimes that happens, life just pushes you and you're like, okay, I'm either going to swim or this is it, like I'm done. And that's kind of what it was. I mean, I've been doing photography for a really long time. I've started with film and, transitioned into digital. And then the 2008 economy crash and people couldn't afford a high-end portrait family wedding event photographer. And then, trying to and then everybody got a camera in their cell phone. And then DSLRs were affordable and everybody's uncle was a professional photographer. And with every punch kind of stumbled and figured out, okay, so now where do I fit? Like how do I use my passion to make money? And that's literally what you did. How do I use what I love, what I'm passionate about, what I can't imagine a day without? How do I do that and still make money, And that's what you just have to do. I feel that if you're not passionate about acting, if you're just like, it's cool, then you should probably do something else because like you said, it's a rough and tumble world out there, especially if you're not passionate enough to be dedicated to really working on your craft and like all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surrounded by it. My complex is full of actors. I was like, they want it. I can tell. Like they're creating projects. At least when I moved in here, it was a very creative environment. I mean, granted, now we're all stuck in our homes, but like people were creating stuff because I live in what looks like a Hobbit village. It looks like it could be like a fairy tale. And so they actually created some sort of like web
Doesn't
series
all of
fairy.
West Hollywood kind of look like that though? I
A
mean,
lot. Yeah, yeah.
be honest.
That's true. That's true.
That's
But
cool.
I mean, ultimately, how I got into what I'm doing is because I always feel like I want to be in the position of um, empowerment, empowering myself, empowering others. Um, and yeah, so far it's worked out. And, like I'm still growing and it's still a journey. I did a recent shift, during this pandemic has been tons of shifts, but, if we're speaking to your audience about a great time to be creating content, oh my God. I mean, nowadays, like I tell half my clients, use your phone, obviously like the three elements you want to think about when you're shooting, and you probably know this as well, are the camera, but most of us have decent cameras on our phone.
Yeah.
The second is the audio. If you don't have good having bad audio, it makes a video unwatchable. And then lighting. I mean, I did something, I'll show you, I'll take it off. I bought these like cheap panels, and I stuck them to the side of my board behind me because ultimately you want like even light. But like you could even do like a Zoom recording, having a conversation, just get creative. I just think, it's an opportunity to create stuff. And at the end of the day, when you're starting out, no one's watching. So it's the time to be creative.
And audio is something that I think people are afraid of. I know I'm a little bit afraid of audio myself, but it's so important, and it's almost more important than the video because people will watch a bad quality video, but they will not stay if the sound is bad.
No.
So when actors are doing their self tapes, I'm like, you have to have good audio, and sometimes that means investing in a lav mic that'll attach to your, cell phone. They're $20. I mean, you can find,
Exactly.
yeah, but
Exactly.
you have to have that because that, echoey, people can't, like there's something on, it's a human brain thing. They're like, nah, never mind.
Yeah.
Where if the picture's a little fuzzy or something, they're like, I see what's going on. Like I can, your eyes are like, your brain's like, yeah, I can fill that in. I know what's happening. But
Yeah.
that audio is so important, and it's something that is to me, one of the hardest things, because I grew up with still photography. So lighting is just like second nature. I
Yeah.
like, oh, well, just light it right. Like here, just move that here, and boom. And we just did an event last weekend, you produced it. But it was through Zoom, and a couple of the people just had terrible lighting. And I was like, just Zoom me and I'll fix this. And it was just like, raise your light, move your camera, and it was, to me, so basic.
Yeah.
But that's why we all need each other, is because what just seems basic and easy to me may be just overwhelming to you. And like the way I feel about sound, there's somebody else that's like, why doesn't she just make her sound better? And I'm like, because I don't know how.
Well, it's
So that's
hard.
why
Like if you
yeah,
go to like Amazon and click on like cheap mics, like you can get a lapel mic, or you can get like, I have a lapel, but I also have this because I do voiceovers. That's like the one leftover thing for my acting career.
you're
So
acting.
this is kind of my booth area, that you're makeshift booth area. But you don't have to spend a lot of money. I mean, it really just depends.
No.
What are you doing this for? Is this something you want to invest in? Because you could invest in a better mic. There are plenty of $20 to $30 mics that you can plug directly into your computer.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing I would suggest too is definitely not use your computer camera. If you
can do
likely
anything.
have a phone that is way better.
Yeah.
Computer cameras are still just not very good.
Yeah.
And the other mistake, so as someone who's on Zoom a lot, I see this all the time. The window is behind the person. So they're like working against the natural light all the time. Like their face is dark, the window's back here. I'm like, why don't you just turn yourself around?
Or to the side, let some nice side light hit you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to some people, it literally doesn't occur to them. And that's why we need to have these conversations, because what's simple for you and what's simple for me may be difficult, for someone else. So that's one of the reasons why I do this vlog, because I feel like, we just say things that to us, we're just saying simply in a conversation, and somebody else is like, I never thought of that.
Yeah. No, but it makes
so,
such a difference.
Yeah, it's so, and I had somebody contact me the other day on Facebook, and they were like, okay, so what do I need? I've got to upgrade my self-tape, setup. What do I need? And I was like, well, like, what's your budget? Because we can do this for $100, or we can do this for $3,000. Like, what do you want? And the difference for a self-tape, the difference from $100 setup to a $3,000 setup is going to be fairly minimal for just that. If that's all if you're not going to, well, since I have the equipment, I'm also going to do this. If it's solely for self-tapes, you can buy a $15 app for your phone that opens up your video camera to manual settings. And you can like have a really good 4K video camera on your cell phone. But, again, what are you have to really think about what you want to invest. You are going to have to invest some time in learning how to use these things and learning how to set up your stuff. But it's so obtainable. Like even 10 years ago, this would have been so expensive. Like it wouldn't have been obtainable. And right now, anybody, like even if money is super tight, you can borrow $15 from your buddy. Like, you know what I mean? And you can get like a cloth, and we can diffuse a regular lamp, and we can still make it work. You know what I mean? It can be done. So there's no excuse. It's just, if you are serious, you're going to invest in it, and you're going to, invest in your career. And sometimes that means money. And sometimes it just means, okay, this is what I have to work with. I'm going to learn how to make this the best I can possibly make it. And that's okay.
Exactly. Too. I mean, I'm definitely the believer of start with what you have. And then if you have some leftover budget, because I'm always working on like a penny budget, like it's like, bare bones. So, what can I do for nothing? And there are so many ways, so many hacks, so many ways that you can work it without spending a dime. But, it really just depends on what you want to do. So, I mean, I'm a firm believer of this is your career and you want to invest in it. And, depending on what you're doing and what platform it's for, it'll, potentially pay itself back.
Right.
If you create a YouTube channel and decide, you know what, I'm going to create a vlogging channel and it's going to be like, and there are plenty of people that do this, like different characters. And they have built up an audience where I'm sure with just like ad money, they're already making money back and they probably paid for it, in tenfold.
So, my kids are what, 28 and 27 ish. I don't know how old my kids are. They're that age-ish. They're millennials.
They're whatever.
Yeah. Once anyway. So, but my son has pretty much solely watched YouTube for 15 years. Like that's like, you ask him about something on a network television or on cable and he's like, what is that? And I'm like, he's like, oh, I don't know. And then he'll start rattling off about a YouTuber. It's like, and this has been for years. And there's a lot of people that is their content consumption is YouTube, solely YouTube. So there is money to be made on YouTube and there is the recognition to be made on YouTube. It's absolutely a valid, platform to be a part of. And, just getting yourself out there, getting the practice of, working. I'm not saying if your goal is to be an actor and, to be a series regular or to, be in a movie or whatever, work your way up to that, keep going on auditions, but until you get hired, make your own stuff. That gets you all of a sudden, because you're so hands-on with it, you go home and you look at the footage and you're like, wow, I thought I was giving like a scared look. I'm giving some other look, you know what I mean? Like it comes across totally different. And then you can work on, oh, I thought I was at the right angle, but I gave him a profile. I need to like be aware of where the camera is and all these little things that you learn on set, with body, how you need to work around the camera. This is just going to help you,
Yeah.
So.
I mean, so Jeff and I have had many iterations of our business. And when we got together, he's kind of the jack of all trades. And I've picked up a lot of my production skills through him. But when we got together, he looked at my reel and he was like, huh, interesting. I have no idea how to cast you. And I was like, because I played a lot of different characters. He's like, well, how do you want to be cast? And at the time I had a very specific thing in mind. He's like, well, why don't we just write that? We'll write a scene and shoot it and, potentially write a couple different scenes and put together a reel for that. And it's funny because we ended up deciding to shoot a whole pilot based on this conversation, which was awesome and a great experience and our first entryway into creating together. But it was interesting because we're often not cast we're sometimes not cast appropriately, just because, I feel like I can play a lot of different characters, but in terms of making it easy for a casting director to cast me, I had very specific characters in mind and I hadn't been cast as them, which is kind of interesting. So, creating can give you that opportunity to let people see you differently. And it can be also fun,
Exactly. And having when the casting director clicks on your headshot should tell them a story. And then when they open up your reel, that headshot should say the same thing.
100%.
And when they look at your resume, it should all match, because if it doesn't, they're like, huh. And I'm not saying you can't have more than one reel clip, and definitely not more than one headshot. But if you're submitting to something, they should be able to see something in your reel that matches that headshot, because
100%.
it's your marketing strategy, headshots, biggest part of your marketing strategy, catch their eye, and then they click on your profile, they see that reel. And COVID has done one thing for me. I have spent more time in the last year talking to casting directors than ever. And believe me, before COVID, I used to say, oh, I talk to casting directors all the time, but during COVID, because casting directors were on Instagram Live. They were on my vlog. They were all over, I mean, they were just bored and they were accessible to people. And that's the one thing that, because casting directors are human, they all have different opinions and different ideas. But the one thing that all of them agreed on is they wanted to tell a story. They want the headshot to match with the reel. And so, and that question was asked, do you care if it's something as long as it looks professional and they can tell you look like you belong on TV, they don't care if it's a network show or if it's a, they're trying to fill this character. And if you're a fit, they want to know that you're a fit. That's
exactly.
And they've got to see it. They can't read your mind. And you saying, but I can do it isn't good enough. They have to see it.
No, I put so much work. The last 2 times I did headshots, I put so much work into figuring out what are the characters I want. I really took the time, because as much as like I'm going to give credit to the talent of the photographer, most of the times when you're shooting with someone, you don't know them that well and they don't know you. So what they capture is what they see, and they don't know 100% what to bring out of you. So knowing what you want and then having that conversation, with them, to get that is so important.
So, with my clients, I give them a questionnaire and we discuss what characters are you a fit for? What characters what are we going to achieve in this specific, there we go. I can't speak English today. It's not like I can speak another language. It's just I can't even speak English.
Oh, I get it.
What specifically are we going to accomplish in our session today? And what does that look like to you? Because you may say, I want a headshot that looks like a doctor. And I'm like, okay, so is it a doctor, or is it a, serious doctor? Or is it, are you an oncology doctor and you're serious and you have to deliver bad news to someone? Are you delivering a baby and it's super happy and exciting? Like, what kind of a doctor are you? And what would that doctor look like? An attorney, same thing, whatever it is, and then what would that person wear? What colors would that person wear? And then,
wow.
Then they bring everything in, a lot of my clients bring their entire wardrobe. It's okay.
I know. I used to do that.
I always say bring more than less. And then I always think I'm the one that said this, aren't I?
Yes.
Just move into the studio.
But that's amazing. And you do that. Because I never experienced that from any of the photographers. Like, I went out and realized I'm not getting what I want. Most casting directors will say you have more dimension than this photo. I'm like, it's a flat, it's okay, yeah, sure. I'm sure I'm they're like, it's too pretty. Like, you have way more personality, or they were thinking that it was one thing and I should be showing another. I'm like, I mean, that's hard with headshots. Like, it's a flat photo. You can show one emotion at a time. I can't show 2 emotions. But to their credit, it got me thinking, how can I take control, and how can I change the situation around? And
love that you did that. I love that you did that on your own. I love that you calculated that on your own and figured that out on your own, because, because that's a lot of times when people come into my studio, they're like, am I pretty? Is my hair fine? Is my makeup fine? Like, that's what they're thinking on. And so in the picture, that's like, and what they need to be thinking is like that character, because what that character is feeling is what I want to be able to capture. I don't want to be capturing your insecurities. I want to be capturing that doctor, that soccer mom, that whatever it is. So, we go into and I'll have my, let's play out a scene. What would they do today? Where we are? Let's go buy groceries. How do you feel when you're buying groceries? Whatever is relevant to that character, and, kind of really get them, because when you feel something, that camera is going to capture it. Like, that's
100%.
You can't hide emotions.
You have to. internalize it. I remember thinking a monologue, or just thinking I am powerful, or
Yeah.
I am, scared, or, just these internal
You're really good at
monologues.
that. I love that you figured that. See, I knew I liked you.
But I love the fact that you give this to people, because hands down, I in New York, I had a lot of headshots done. Never did I get a sheet like that.
Well, I think too, I mean, the industry, 10 years ago was more like get a good theatrical, get a good commercial, but they're so specific now. It's just so specific. So yeah, that's, it's something that's really needed. And since COVID, I have been doing something that I've never done before, and that's actually coaching people. Like, okay, this is what you need to take into your photographer. Like, I kind of feel like I'm giving other photographers a freebie, because I'm like preparing their clients for them so they can get good headshots. But there's people that are living in other parts of the country that watch this vlog, and they're like, I'm not in LA, can you help me? And I'm like, let's Zoom call, and we practice through it so that they know how to go in front of their photographer. Because if you're already going to give pretty much, if you're giving the photographer something and they can light you cinematically, and they have a, good understanding of body positioning, then you're going to be fine. If you're mindset.
I think that's amazing that you're
Yeah.
coaching people, because honestly, like, acting versus taking a photo, completely different thing.
Totally different.
Completely different thing. And
a lot of actors get very intimidated by this.
sure, but also, especially when I got my first headshots, the average price in New York was between like $600 and $1,000 or $1,200. And you're like, I'm throwing all this money I have got, so in me, I was like scared that I wasn't going to get a shot. And I spent like $1,000 on a headshot. And I know how important it was, but still, it's like nerve wracking to take that chance. And like, I've met this I've had one call with this photographer. I've seen his work. It's great, but we don't know each other, So I think it's awesome that I like, more people need to be doing the coaching.
Yeah, because, my thing is headshots are the biggest part of your marketing strategy. And I believe that so much that, I've just, I told you that I kind of got pushed into headshots. So I used to be very arrogant, and I was like, headshots are what the kids do. Like, you plop someone down, click, like anybody can do that. Like, I'm a professional, excuse me. Like, I'm not going to do headshots. Like,
Oh,
that
you
is
sound like
so
me.
below me.
No, that's how I was when like starting to work in the digital space. I'm like, I am a legit actress.
Exactly.
I wanted to be Parker Posey. Let's get real. Like, I wanted to be like an indie queen, but like I had no. I mean, now, look, you have amazing opportunities that exist digitally, and I was stubborn, and I also was not, I didn't enjoy just pressing play, and I like getting into characters. But then, once I started writing scripts and crafting things on my own. But yeah, there's no better time. I don't know what the industry is like 100% in terms of like auditioning and projects right now. I know like there's a lot of like um, reality television and documentary stuff that's still happening, but I'm sure the opportunities are, it's much slower.
It's going up and down. We're closed, we're open, we're closed, we're open. We have to postpone things. Someone tested positive, and it's probably going to be like that for a while. But
Yeah.
there's still auditions. People are still auditioning. I very rarely do self tapes in the studio anymore. Most people are doing them at home, but there's, I've had a couple of clients that have auditioned for some really big parts, and they're like, hey, we want it. We want to make sure it's professional. So, will you do it? And I'm like, yeah, I put a mask on, I keep distance. But I know Merrick's still auditioning a lot.
But
Stuff's still
remotely,
moving.
right?
I would say 99% is, I would say about 90% is self-tape, and about 10% is Zoom. Sometimes on a callback, I think he's had like one in-person callback. But I think pretty much like the first audition has been self-tape and then a callback has been Zoom. I know commercially, he's done several Zoom auditions commercially, but yeah, that's remotely. So that's why it's important to learn, like actors are going to have to learn how to do this. It's not going to go away. Casting directors have discovered that they can audition more people quicker and less expensive. You think they're going to go back to the way it used to be? They're not.
No. I
They're
mean,
not.
it's also like it's paying for a studio, it's their time, like they can do it in the comfort of their own home. I
Oh yeah.
actually liked, because I did, this was obviously pre-COVID and several years ago, but I was doing auditioning for a piece and I did it over Zoom and I found it kind of relaxing, like the stress, there's not the stress of the walking into the room, you're kind of sitting, it's a unique, it's definitely a different kind of experience, but I feel like it's on your own terms.
So I never even heard of Zoom until COVID. So I'm shocked that you were utilizing this tool before COVID. I'm like, what? I thought the company was like, hey, we got this thing and how convenient that we'll just launch it today. So that's cool to know that it's actually been out there for a
It did
while.
exist, but definitely most people never heard of it. I would say
Right.
I used it rarely.
Okay.
And I might have, it might have been over Skype. I can't remember if it was Skype or Zoom. I definitely had heard of Zoom prior to the pandemic, but I didn't use it like I use it now.
And Blue
I mean,
Jean, I guess that's a thing, Blue Jean. I mean, there's a few of these little, Zoom-ish things that are going on. So
but
definitely.
like I'm doing full on productions like you over Zoom. It's amazing.
So during COVID, some friends of ours, Laura Gardner and Frank Collison, their friend wrote the script and they wanted, they asked him to do it. And so the script was during quarantine and all the scenes were taking, like everybody filmed their own scenes at their house. And it was all like this point of view, like, you're talking to the Zoom screen and then, the flip side of it. So, it was like a Zoom story, the whole story, and they put it together. And, I think it's going places like
Oh,
they
good.
talking to Netflix and like talking to places. It was a really cool thing. And the director directed me through Zoom. Like we had the camera tethered through to the monitor and, and then we did another project, same thing. It was just, kind of a two-man thing. And the director was behind me in the Zoom, talking to the actor and, doing all this. So, I mean, it's possible. If you want to create, you can create. It's
100%.
absolutely doable.
And
Absolutely
back to like
doable.
what we first spoke about is like with a couple little tweaks, you can create something that looks professional. It doesn't have to be super expensive, but use what you've got and what we have right now. I mean, I can't imagine someone wanting to go out and shoot right now. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable. I have neighbors who are doing it, but I don't feel comfortable. I've definitely like positioned myself in my home and haven't left.
Yeah, we're pretty much hunkered down here. We go to the grocery store once a week still. Like we're still pretty hunkered down. But Merrick has been on set. Bigger productions are really, really safe. They have it figured
I've
out
heard.
and like a bazillion tests. It's like,
I've heard.
but it's good. We're thankful that he's still working, or
Sure.
started to work again, or whatever it is. It's it is what it is, but it's been a real experience. But I feel like, be creative, just do something, even if it's
Absolutely.
even if it's just downloading sites and memorizing them and doing a faux, audition. Just that way you're comfortable with the tech side of it and it keeps you sharp as an actor. You're memorizing lines, you're presenting lines, and then you can look at them and go, oh, maybe I should look a little deeper into this character. What else can I do? And then do it again. And there's so many things that you can be doing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you could
content.
do the same thing. Oh, sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, bring a friend onto Zoom and do it with a Zoom, like
Yeah.
make it into a scene.
Yep, absolutely. Hit record and then watch it back. Absolutely.
Why not?
So content strategist. Define
Yes.
content strategist, because it sounds so cool. I love it. It sounds like cool. It makes you look really cool.
Well, that's a very good question you asked, lady. I would say I look at like a video or, platform and say, okay, what works best on this platform? What works best for this audience? It's about thinking, it's not just about putting together a video, putting together a show. It's thinking about what goes beyond that. Because, and I think as a creative, and I used to do this a lot, we're so wrapped up in the pre-production and the production of it that we forget about the what happens after. And if your platform then you're uploading it to is Facebook or YouTube or any of these platforms, like a lot of attention has to go into what happens next. And that's where the strategy comes in. And really the strategy needs to be thought of from the moment you start thinking about creating this, because you can build it into the project. Like strategy can be, what do you want your audience to do? So you can build in calls to action. What do you like? How long should a video be? And depending on the platform, like YouTube, they reward people who do over 12 minutes. It never used to be like this, but now they reward people, and you can't actually put an ad on your video unless it's at least 12 minutes. Versus Facebook, shorter videos work. So it's looking at the platform and like looking at what audiences are attracted. Like, I'm assuming you're on Facebook. Facebook tends to be, I'm more than assuming we're friends on Facebook, but Facebook tends to be an older crowd. It tends to be, it's like, I think I read somewhere that the fastest growing audience in Facebook is 65 and up, which made me laugh.
I'm not 65 yet.
65.
Just throwing that out
I'm just
there.
saying, growing audience.
Right. No.
Versus like a Twitch, or a YouTube or, an Instagram. So it's looking at, the different platforms and saying, okay, what are the audiences I want to reach and where do they live? And they could live on multiple platforms, but also looking at the individual platforms and say, like, how can I rework this to be more appropriate for, say, Instagram versus YouTube? Looking at the formats, it's a lot of different things, thinking about how you're going to reach audience, because ultimately that's what you need to do. And if you're just doing it for the creativity, that's amazing. And you don't need to think about the strategy aspect. But when you start growing and start thinking, okay, this is something, and I want to get it in front of people, it's not just about uploading it. There's a ton of strategy.
So do you consult people? Like, can my viewers like, hey, I've been creating content, I'm not exactly sure what to do with my content. Can they contact you? Do you have like consultations that you can like, okay, you help them figure out what they're, because some people, they don't know. They're like, I got this thing. It's really pretty and cute. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So in some ways, the cool thing about myself is that I have virtually been a part of every part of a production, from like story ideation through distribution. So, I am probably better at certain aspects than others, but I have had my hand in all of it. And so it doesn't matter where they are in the process. And sometimes, even if it's just an idea, I can work with them. But say they've already started doing it and they're like, I'm not getting any views. Why am I not getting any views? Then we can look and see, like I did this with a client last year. She had a talk show and she was very keen on it being on YouTube. And she's in her late 50s. It was a woman-centric talk show, very dramatic, a little somber, inspiring, but wasn't kind of the best place for her content to exist. And what she was doing was taking her audience, which clearly lived on Facebook, and dragging them over to YouTube, trying to build that audience. And so she was working against herself. And so it took a little time to convince her that that wasn't the right platform. That was kind of the starting point. There were other things that we worked on, because she had already, she was so keen. I've never seen such a go-getter. She had already shot like 20 episodes. And, in some ways, though, it was harder because she'd already had all this content. And so I had to work around what she currently had. And then the pandemic hit. And so it was, it was an interesting process. But back to your question, yes, like I work with people in all different stages in what they're doing, because I think strategy you need to start thinking about it from the get-go.
So I know that you're on Facebook because we're friends,
Yes.
even though neither one of us are 65. But what's the best platform for my viewers to reach out to you? Like, do you prefer, what's your favorite platform for them to reach out and say, hey, can we have a consultation? Can you answer my question?
I'll be honest, I like Facebook because I feel like Facebook, it comes like rather than email. I'm not a fan of email because it's a faceless thing. I like Facebook, though if we're not friends, it's a little tricky. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. I'm like, what's my Instagram handle? Because it used to be Actor Jackler and I switched it. I think it's
that's fun. That's actually cute. I'm going to put all the links in the description below. So just
I'm like, what is it? Yeah,
okay.
Instagram. You can email me. I'm not trying to shy away from it. You can even call me. But my email is A plus my last name, Jackler, JACKLER @gmail.com. Yeah,
have you been saying that since you're 5? Is that how you learned how to spell your name?
JACKLER. I don't know where that came from. It's just one of those days.
That's okay. It's all right. It's been a long week.
No, but I love consulting. I love helping other people figure this out. I feel like that's honestly, like I love creating my own stuff, but I get so much pleasure from seeing other people be able to birth their projects and being instrumental and, a helping hand in the process and supporting them, because it's a big endeavor, if you want to create, even if it's just like, a vlog series on YouTube or, what you're doing, you have to put a lot of time and thought into figuring out what the show is, who you're going to bring, if it's an interview guy,
You do understand that everybody that watches this show knows that I don't put a lot of effort into this. I just bring really awesome guests on and we just chat.
And that's fine.
But somebody asked me yesterday, they're like, how much time do you put into, that, to put a vlog together? And so I like really sit down and thought about it. And I was like, let's not talk about it.
You and I will talk. We'll strategize.
Like I do, because you edit it, you have to put this in and, most of the time, like I'll cut out a few of the flub ups. Sometimes I'm like, they were funny. People will laugh. I'll leave it in. But it is something you have to love to continue to do. But I love that you're willing to help people strategize, because I think a lot of people are like, wow, we've got this thing and we just did it. And all of a sudden it's actually cool, but I don't know what to do with it now. And, I got this cool thing sitting here and I don't know what to do. So that's really important. I don't know if it's not talked about much, but what you do, I feel is really important. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you for hanging out with me. I really had fun. I know all of our viewers loved listening to all of your amazing advice, so I really appreciate it. Don't forget to follow her on all of her social media platforms. Everything's down in the description below. Share this, leave us tons and tons of comments, and most importantly, have an amazing week, and I'll see you next week.
Text or call today so that we can get you effective headshots that you can use as part of your marketing strategy. Headshots by Peggy, how can I help you?